Today we're going to paint a watercolor watermelon. Seems like that's a popular and easy fruit to paint to demo our free SketchBox brushes for Procreate. If you don't have the SketchBox brushes, they're available as a free download. Just follow the link in the description below, and while you're there, click on the freebies link and download the Aqua Edge brush as well. We'll be using that brush at the end of this video to add that elusive watercolor bleed to our watermelon. First one is the Aqua Paint. This is the standard watercolor brush for the pack. It's a glaze brush, so its value builds up as you add strokes, but only gets as saturated as the color that's selected. So here, it will only get as saturated as this magenta we've picked. Next up is the Aqua Amped. This brush is similar to the last brush, but as you add strokes, the color gets multiplied. So the more strokes you add, the more saturated and dark the color gets until it eventually goes black. It's probably best if you use this with lighter pencil pressure or a reduced opacity until you get used to it. And then we'll also be using the Just Water brush. This doesn't deliver any pigment. It's only for blending or creating wash-like effects. The only thing is that this removes all that beautiful texture, which brings me to the spackle and smudge, which I've loaded as my smudge tool. This brush is pretty amazing at blending almost any brush combination and is my smudge tool of choice. Just brush with varying pencil pressure and you'll see some of that texture magically reappear. Make sure to adjust the size to taste. I'd lean towards a smaller brush size with this one, but feel free to experiment. All right, so let's start painting our watermelon. I'll switch to the Aqua Amped, and then I'm going to paint a triangle shape in pretty broad and loose strokes. You can see it already looks pretty good. And I'm going to go over it again. And then I'm going to switch to my spackle and smudge tool and blend some of these harsher spots and just some random areas just to give it some variety. And it's back to the Aqua Amp to darken this edge and give our watermelon some dimension. And where I've gone out of the lines, I'm going to erase with the Aqua Amp loaded as my eraser. Now, you don't have to be too careful here. It's almost better if you're not, because it adds to the watercolor effect. Now I'll pick a green for the rind. And I'll paint this the same way I painted the watermelon, these broad strokes. And I will darken this edge. I'm going to reshape this whole thing with the Aqua Amped as an eraser again. And I'm not going to be too careful with this. Oh, I got to get the brush size right. Again, not being careful. Just shaping it kind of how I want. And there you go. Here we have our lovely watermelon. Now, watermelons are lighter towards the rind, so we'll add this next. We'll switch to the Aqua Paint. And pick a light pinkish white color. And then we'll paint the bottom of our watermelon. And once that's done, we'll make a nice blend with our Just Water brush. I think it needs to be lighter, so we're going to go over it again. And there we go. Now it's time for our seeds. I'm going to go back to the Aqua Amped with a dark color. And reduce the brush size a little bit and just paint in some seeds. Just go over it a couple times, get it as dark as you want. Now, before we continue, a couple of things to note on these brushes. They both take advantage of the Apple Pencil's tilt feature. And when you tilt these brushes, they begin to dry up. This is really nice for variety and a more realistic effect. So if you hold the pencil upright, it delivers pigment. But as you tilt it down towards the iPad, it starts to dry up. Both the Aqua Amped and the Aqua Paint work like this. The first is taking this layer I've added and changing its blend mode to color burn. Make sure that the layer is selected and then go over your watermelon again with your watercolor brush. You'll immediately see how it adds pop to the color and some variety. You can experiment with this. Now I'm going to erase the bottom to let our original lighter area show through. Now the next tip is adding watercolor paper texture. Links to the one I'm using are in the description below. It's a premium pack for about $8 and worth every penny, and I have no affiliation with the seller. I just really like her product. So when you add the paper texture, duplicate it so you have 2 copies on 2 layers. Make sure they are above your painted layers. Change the blend mode of the top one to multiply and the opacity to taste. I chose something around 68-70%. For the duplicate, change its blend mode to color burn, and again, adjust the opacity to taste. For me, it's usually around 50 to 60%. All right, another trick is to adjust your hue, saturation, and shift your colors and brightness slightly. Again, this is all to your personal preference, and you don't have to do any of these. Finally, you can do a freehand selection, feather it, which I probably did too much of, and adjust the hue, saturation, and or brightness. And you could do this in different areas of your painting to give it a little bit of variety and a more realistic look. And finally, the elusive watercolor bleed edge. This is a small detail that makes a pretty big difference. But sadly, at this stage in the brush engine, you'll have to paint it in. But it's really simple with this pack. You can see that it already looks pretty good with our method, but let's take it to level 2. I'm going to go to my freebies and load the Aqua Edger, and then all you have to do is pick a color that's next to the edge you want to create, and then just paint it in. I use small up and down strokes, and I try to follow the natural line of the edge. And again, you don't have to be too careful. Feel free to pull that color in more because we'll be blending it with the spackle and smudge tool next. And here, just take your spackle and smudge and blend. And you can repeat this process in random locations. I'm going to try it here now. Again, just little up and down motions. Make it look like watercolor bleed. I'm going to bring in the color. As the color bleeds out into the edge, and then blend it with the spackle and smudge. And there you have it. A nice watercolor watermelon with digital brushes. That looks pretty convincing. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, etc. I'll be doing more of these, but if there's a specific video you'd like to see, drop a comment and I'll see what I can do. Make sure to check out our site or subscribe to our newsletter for free brushes and updates. Adios.